premillennial rapture? For one, is this the same as pre-tribulation rapture? What is this, and how does it relate to Schofield and these guys that we're speaking on?
Well, you could be premillennial. In other words, you could believe that the 1,000-year reign of Christ is yet to come and not believe in the pre-tribulation rapture. There are some people who believe in a mid-tribulation rapture, and then there are some people who believe in a post-tribulation rapture. But the majority of evangelicals believe in the pre-tribulation rapture. So it's this idea that somehow Christ returns secretly and takes all the real believers out of the world, and also all the Christian dead are resurrected, and they come to meet Christ in the air, and then the tribulation happens, and so Christians are not there. But somehow people, get saved during the tribulation, which if you understand how the church actually is supposed to work, it's kind of hard to imagine how people could become members of the church when there's no church there for them to become members of. There's no one to baptize them. There's no one to teach them. But if you have this sort of totally non-sacramental view of things like evangelicals tend to have, then I suppose you could have an easier time wrapping your mind around that. Someone maybe they just found a Jack Chick track after the rapture. They read it and decide to ask Christ in their heart and then go baptize themselves maybe. And they're all good.
I've heard it said that in this scenario that they think could happen, are Jews left behind?
The Jews that had not already embraced Christ are still around.
And what happens on earth?
They have a whole very detailed series of things that they lay out. There's a book called Dispensational Truth where they have entire book of charts for the end times that's lay out based on the book of Revelation, but also other prophecies in the Old Testament, how they think things are going to pan out. And I can't remember if they believe the Jews all embrace Christ right at the very end, right after the Antichrist is revealed. But I think it's more towards the end of the tribulation that they see the bulk of the Jews embracing Christ, although they might see some of them embracing Christ earlier on or something.
Can you contrast this with how the ancient church and the Orthodox Church views what we're talking about here?
Well, one thing that they like to point to is you do have a few early fathers that expressed views that would express the idea that they believed a 1,000-year reign of Christ was going to happen in the future. But you don't find anybody teaching anything about a pre-tribulation rapture or anything like that. So the thing about the millennium, there is a little bit of support that they can point to among some early church figures. But the church, the mainstream view of the church is the idea that we are actually in the millennium now. The millennium doesn't actually literally mean 1,000 years. It refers to the age of the church. And that basically Christ is going to return at the end of this age whenever that actually happens, and then we enter into the new heaven and the new earth. But in the Creed and also in the first chapter of the Gospel of Luke, it talks about Christ's kingdom having no end. Mm-hmm. And yet people who believe in dispensationalism believe that Christ returns, he reigns on earth for 1,000 years, and then he hands the kingdom over to God the Father at the end of those 1,000 years. And so his kingdom does have an end. And that's not what we believe in the Creed, but it's also not what's taught in Luke chapter 1, where it literally says, of his kingdom there shall be no end.